Welcome! You are watching my Zero to Keystone Legend movie as a Holy Paladin. I've done this at the beginning of Season 2, so if you have missed it, this video is your perfect opportunity to catch up as I have all the episodes combined into one. In Season 3, I will once again start out as a healer going for Keystone Legend. At the time of making this video, there is 1 week left of the poll, so please go to the description or the pinned comment and make sure to vote. Currently, Preservation Evoker and Mistweaver are really close. But for now, please enjoy the movie. Hi, my name is Saloon, and I usually make videos about transmog collection and character customization in WoW, but that is not my only passion in the game. I also enjoy doing Mythic Plus dungeons, setting personal goals and trying to meet them, while I document my journey with all the successes and failure, so I can encourage others to do the same, because if I can do it, so can you. This will be my toughest personal challenge yet, as I picked to be a healer, and not just any, a Holy Paladin, a spec I know the least of. Supposedly one of the weakest healer specs currently. To top it off, I decided to go for 3000 IO, aka Keystone Legend this time, as this is the first time ever Blizzard added a reward and an achievement for reaching 3000 IO score, which motivates me more than ever to go for it, even if the mount is a bit underwhelming. Welcome to the first episode of my Zero to Keystone Legend series. This character started off at 595 item level on week 1 of the new patch. As there were no dungeons or delves available yet, I focused on doing some weekly quests for now and making sure I gathered as many weathered crests as possible. The very first item this season was a veteran helmet from a weekly quest in Undermine. The second veteran item was a cloak from another weekly quest. Then I equipped any blue item that dropped from world quests, rares, shipping and handling, and so on. After running around in Undermine for a while, I remembered I should probably max out Cyrus's Circlet, the ring from the Siren Isle, to 658 item level. This brought me up to 604 item level so far, and that's where I ended week 1, as there was nothing really left to do. From the first weekly quest on week 2, I got another helmet, which is super unlucky as I got that last time, and veteran boots, which was nice. After this, I did every weekly I could to get more delve keys and weathered crests. Before I went into the first delve, I crafted myself a couple 629 items with blacksmithing. In case you didn't know, you can upgrade rare quality crafted items with enchanted weather crests all the way up to 629. These are really cheap and easy to make, and are a great way to quickly boost up your item level. I made chest, wrists and legs and a shield for now, so before entering the first delve, I had 620 item level. I did the delves on tier 8 for now for easy gear. I had keys for 7 delves, so I got 7 champion items and a hero item thanks to a map. I got a ring with haste versatility, which is great. Then I got a trinket with on-use haste or crit, then a different trinket with haste on use, a crit mastery necklace, haste versatility helmet, and a 2-handed int weapon which I can't use because of Shield of Righteous, and at last a shield, which was unfortunate because the map gave me a hero shield as well. I also ran 2 mythic zeros as practice, and from one of them I got champion shoulders. This all put me to 634 item level, and I was ready for Mythic Plus, or so I thought. I'm running the standard Mythic Plus build for Herald of the Sun that's recommended on Icy Veins. The first dungeon is Priory of the Flame plus 2. I wish I wouldn't have had to show this because it was just embarrassing, quite frankly. First of all, I forgot to include Hammer of Wrath into one of my macros, so it never gets used. That's obviously not going to be the real issue here though. I wasted my wings at the start because we lost it. I expected a lot of damage coming in, and none happened. Then the tank pulls the lynxes, and those little furry menaces really hurt. Whenever they pounce, they just put a nasty bleed on their target that does a lot of damage. The tank pulls the next pack while the lynxes were still alive, and while I was still healing the others, he goes down in a few hits and we vibe. We come back and deal with the mini bosses this time, and I got quite low on mana. I really messed up here. I should have said that I need mana, but I didn't, and while I was trying to sit down to drink, the tank pulled a huge pack with 4 sharpshooters, 2 lynxes, and he went down faster than my hopes of even finishing this dungeon. We vibed one more time to pulling every single patrol in the dungeon, and then we called it there. Not a great start. Next, I went to Dark Flame Cleft +2. We had an unfortunate start where the Overseer's knockback knocked an ad into an unpulled pack, so we got more company, and for some reason I didn't pop wings right away to salvage the situation, so the rogue goes down. I missed lay on hands on him, and then a second Overseer got pulled somehow, and we have multiple mobs casting freely, and eventually we all go down except the tank. The hunter called reset, but the tank refused and pulled everything to the start. "14 deaths later, we finally made it to the first boss, but we vibe again because nobody focused down the cart. We do make it to the end of the dungeon, but we don't time it of course, and I got also no loot. It wasn't all doom and gloom however, as the next dungeon, Workshop +2, was smooth sailing and an easy double upgrade. I even got loot this time, which was the Champion Versatility Cloak. Afterwards I did a Rookery +2, but I really struggled on the last boss because the tank was tanking it in the middle, so I couldn't quite reach everyone to heal. Otherwise, we also double upgraded the key here and got a haste verse champion legs. The last key of the week was a butt clenching Motherload +2. What made it butt clenching, you might wonder? Well, we had only 5 minutes left when we pulled the last boss, but for some reason, I cannot fathom why, the DPS completely ignored the ads in the intermission and just died to them slowly. We were finally able to 3-man the boss just in time. I got no loot for my efforts, and this was the last key I did for the week. Next day was reset. I eagerly opened the vault only to find no Tirsa in sight. I picked one-hand weapon as I still had only a 603 item level one-hand weapon, but this choice ended up being a bigger mistake than unleashing the Shadowlands expansion. So I'm closing off the first episode with an item level of 640. I had a pretty brutal start with my first key disbanding at the beginning and then depleting the next, but after that the other keys were a success. I feel like I'm starting to get the hang out of healing with the Paladin, and honestly it feels quite rewarding when it works out. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of my 0 to 3000 IO journey. Welcome back to episode 2 of my 0 to 3000 IO, aka Keystone Legend journey. Last time I reached 640 item level, I timed 3 +2 dungeons and bricked one. In this episode, Cinderbrew Meadery slaps me in the face while it's shouting at me to wake the fuck up. A demon hunter goes absolutely ballistic and pulls half the room in Rookery without Lost or Fortified. And I finally get comfortable with healing on the Paladin and dish out some big fat heals, which felt incredibly rewarding and fun. So I started off this week with some weeklies again, mainly for delve keys, plus Mists of Pandaria time walking was up, which gives us a champion cache with raid loot in it, and I got the most boring, useless piece of item. A cloak. Yay. Then I hit up some doves, and honestly the only item worth mentioning is the hero item I got through a map, which was a heroic chest piece that I'm planning to catalyze. After this I immediately jumped into keys. My plan for this week was to do all dungeons on a +2 at least first, just to experience it from a healer's perspective, so I know where to pop cooldowns and which are the pain points of each dungeon. The first key of the day was Cinderbrew Meadery, and boy, I was less prepared than Illidan's Christmas turkey. The tank goes to the left, and the mini-boss patrols into his pool, and that's where all hell broke loose. For some reason we didn't lost. My WeakAuras is in a terrible placing blocking health bars, and thanks to my bad positioning, I got knocked into more adds. At this point I'm panicking, I stand in the circle, I get stunned, and die. I came back and I could have saved the tank there with lay on hands, but I did not. I was super flustered after that pull and felt terrible. Unfortunately, it gets worse as I once again positioned badly and got knocked into adds again. They aggro onto me and I die. Again. I release and this time the tank gets knocked into more trash. Then I fall over due to a mob casting on me and AoE damage, so yeah. Then the tank leaves. I played terribly, so I can't really blame him too much. As bad as this experience was, I queued for another Cinderbrew Meadery straight after, but I met a Hungarian brother who I think knew what my character's name meant, so I applaud you for being a man of culture. The start went a bit better. We went to the right this time with Lust. Nobody died and we killed trash on that side successfully. Then we pulled Chewy again with uninterrupted pyromaniac casts, and I was really struggling to keep people alive. 10 deaths later we finally managed to defeat the mini-boss. The first boss is Brewmaster Aldrir. One mechanic to keep an eye out for as a healer is throw Cinderbrew. 2 players at once will get the sticking debuff, which can include the healer as well. As Holy Paladin we have really good spot heals, so it's not really an issue to keep people alive with the debuff. Something I should have done here as well is to throw out a Blessing of Sacrifice if I myself didn't have the debuff to mitigate the damage, at least on one person, but to be honest at this point I wasn't quite confident with my cooldowns yet. Another mechanic for healers to keep in mind is the intermission happy hour. I pop cooldowns here, and the DPS should use defensives as well, because the thirsty patrons put a ticking debuff on the whole party until they get their drinks from us. As this is only a +2, and after the nerfs, it didn't hurt that much, but I imagine on a tyrannical high key this is still quite brutal. The next boss I just like to call the P Elemental. It looks like pee, it has pea color, and it pees all over the place. Alright, I'll stop. Anyway, on this boss as a healer I was keeping people alive during the pea storm, spouting stout, and dodge circles, and I was trying to help with the adds by throwing a stun on one of them. The other mechanic I had to deal with was the burning fermentation dot, which goes out on 2 players at the same time, and you can only dispel one of them. Once again as a paladin I should have thrown out a sacrifice on the player I chose to not dispel. We smashed this boss quite easily, the adds never reached the boss so it never gained a big shield. On the way to the third boss, the hunter pulled a few extra mobs, but honestly it wasn't a big deal. However, the issue was rather that we missed a kick on the honey volley, and I was targeted by the knockback, a magic debuff, a slow, and was in the big circle. If I wasn't a paladin with a bubble, I would have 100% died here, and probably everyone else with me, but thankfully I reacted fast and I was able to keep the group alive during this tough pull. I really should have even thrown out a lay on hands on the tank because he was really low, but I managed to pull it back, so this felt really good. Unfortunately, the key ends here, as people pulled the patrol before the third boss, and despite popping everything I had, I couldn't survive, so we vibed, and then the tank just conveniently disconnected. We still had plenty of time to finish this dungeon in time in my opinion, but sadly, this was it. It's fine though, I'll be back later to get my revenge on this dungeon. Speaking of revenge, I returned to Priory +2 once again. On the first boss, the DK tank was apparently a bit undergeared, and it was a bit tough to keep him alive. Normally I wouldn't worry too much about their health, but this one was dropping constantly really low, so it was hard to not spam him to stay alive. We two-chested this dungeon easily, and I got not one, but 2 items out of this. A Warbound Veteran Trinket and a crappy Verse Mastery Ring I didn't need, so I gave it to the Druid. The next dungeon was a Theatre of Pain +2. As that's another I haven't done at this point. But it went quite smoothly, there was only 1 death the entire run due to a personal mistake. I'll talk in more detail about this dungeon from a healer perspective once I reach higher gear levels. The next day, thanks to some exploiters, Blizzard added in the second half of the second spark, so everyone went on a weapon crafting spree, and so did I. If you remember, I picked from the first vault a shield, and I mentioned it was a bad choice. Well, this is the reason why. Afterwards, I hit up the last dungeon I haven't done at all on a +2, which was Floodgate, as I was quite scared of this dungeon. Right off the gate, the tank took a route I haven't really experienced before, so I didn't know what to expect. We went to the right, up the hill, and the tank pulled a Shredder and a Blood Warper together with Lust. The Demon Hunter fell over really quickly, I'm not even sure how, and I almost followed him if it wasn't for my "oh shit" button, the bubble. Once again, thanks to my immunity, I was able to keep the rest of us alive. The first boss went okay, but I can't say the same for the second boss, which is the one I feared the most. I'd say the most important healer mechanic on Demolition Duo is the Kinetic Explosive Gel. This is a dispellable debuff that puts an explosive circle on the target. If you have this, you should move next to the bombs with the circle so the healer can dispel you, and that helps us clearing the bombs. But people just don't do it. Because of this, we had 2 bombs go off at once, which on a higher key would have been a guaranteed wipe for sure. Thankfully, I had my wings ready still, so I popped my CDs and kept us afloat. The next boss is usually the Pug Killer, because 4 players are linked together and have to dodge mechanics together. I'm so glad I waited with doing this dungeon, because by this point Blizzard made a change that healers wouldn't get linked, which made this fight for me a lot easier. There was a point where the shaman and the monk almost died. I even managed to pick the monk with lay on hands up again, which he thanked me for later. I felt like a little kid getting a good grade for the first time ever. Finally, we double upgraded this dungeon, and honestly, it wasn't as bad as I expected. Now that I've experienced all dungeons on a +2, it was time to step up a bit, so I signed up for the first +4 dungeon, which was Motherlode. Since we are on a 4 now, that means we have an affix as well, and this week it was Pulsar. A ball spawned attached to every player, and we just had to run into each other's balls and to collect them. That kind of sounded really weird saying out loud, but whatever. Moving on, the tank lost his mind and wanted to combine 2 peacekeepers and a jockey alongside other mobs, which created a colossal clusterfuck and chaos that not even Jesus himself could have saved. Needless to say, we vibed. After clearing those 2 packs separately, he then had another genius idea of combining 3 assassins, 2 jockeys with a peacekeeper and vendors. I try my absolute hardest to keep us alive through this because rest assured, I'm incredibly stressed and in massive panic. So I ran out of oh shit buttons and I finally make a big mistake as well by pulling extra mobs with my fat Draenei ass. I managed to bop myself, but I get frozen again and I finally die. I get back and we are trying our hardest to keep the jockey from activating another peacekeeper, and the priest does an incredible save with his fear, but somehow we pulled more trash in the process, and one of those was another peacekeeper. Ugh. I kind of lost the will to live healing through this, but I'm surprised nobody left, honestly. The rest of the dungeon went fine, even managed to time it, but I almost fell off my chair when I saw the tank had a score of 2000 rating and yet pulled like that at the beginning. I hope he learned at least from it. If you thought with me that the last tank was chaotic, then buckle up for this Rookery +4. The tank had this incredibly brain-dead idea to pull one entire half of the first room together, which means 4 Stormrook AoEs ticking at once, a million unkicked casts, multiple targeted casts. We could have maybe, just maybe, done this if we had a Bloodlust, which we didn't have in the group at all. The Druid and the Paladin could have done more damage, or if people would have used their interrupts, but no, of course, none of those things happened, and needless to say, we did not time this dungeon. Up next was Mechagon +4. In my opinion, this is one of the easier dungeons. For me personally, from a healing POV, the worst part to heal are the dogs before the dog boss. They put up a dot on players called Fiery Jaws that hurts a lot, and you can only dispel one at a time. I was able to heal us through this, which made me quite happy. On the dog boss, I made some dumb mistakes, such as combat resing the mage seconds before the tank gets the dispel debuff. That does a huge AoE when dispelled, so it killed the mage again. Oops. Then the biggest bullshit of the century happens, where my Draenei's big ass comes into play again and I get knocked out of the safe zone even though I'm literally standing on top of everyone else. Towards the end of the dungeon, the tank has the genius idea of skipping the last 2 packs by him pulling it to the side so we can gate skip, so I can mass resurrect him afterwards into safety. Well, the Warlock puts the gate in front of us instead of upwards to the side. Like, how is it that even meant to help? So the warrior tries to run past and we get into combat, and I thought, well, fuck it. We can salvage this if I pop cooldowns and we just kill the trash. But then the tank starts flaming me. Why did I start to heal him? Like, I'm sorry, did you see the Warlock gate? He completely fucked it up. Like, what else could I have done there? It was a completely useless gate. Eventually we got through this dungeon and I got a useless bracer with no stats and an unused effect which is no good to me at all. Before I ended this week, I had to take a poke at Cinderbrew Meadery one more time. It was only a +2, but I had a ton of fun healing this one. My confidence was peaking higher than Blizzard's love for Xelatat's feet. No getting knocked into bullshit trash. Chewy didn't chew us up. There were no deaths. I could finally truly feel this holy paladin clicking in my brain and was doing my best and having a blast. Needless to say, we two-chested this key and got nothing but sweet revenge on this key. Finally, the last key for the week was a Priory +4. One of the toughest parts for me in this dungeon is for sure the trash before the second boss. Those paladins are constantly casting Sacred Toe, which does quite a bit of AoE damage to the group. On this key level I was able to heal through it without any issues, but I imagine on higher key levels this will be tough. Another painful trash mob is the mini-boss Brawn Pike, who has an aura that does a constant ticking damage on the whole group. In the future I'll have to probably save wings for this guy alone. We were able to double upgrade this dungeon with only 3 deaths in total. I got no loot once again, but this is where I ended this week. Next day was reset, which meant a nice juicy vault. I could choose from a heroic First Master ring and boots, a heroic trinket that gives a shield to someone, and either heroic chest earpiece or legs. I picked heroic legs because I already had a heroic chest, which then I went and catalyzed, thus achieving 2 set for now. So after upgrading a couple items, we are closing off this week with 647 item level and a score of 1434. Next week my goal is to achieve Keystone Master and to farm some 6s and 7s for heroic gear. Hey, it's good to see you again! Welcome to episode 3 of my Zero to Keystone Legends series. In this episode, I was trying to reach Keystone Master, for which I needed to step into the first +6s and +7s. This week felt a lot easier and was actually quite fun to play. I got a bit better with my cooldown usage and felt overall a lot more confident with what I'm doing. This week my goal was to farm some heroic gear and get Keystone Master for extra catalyst charge, so next week I can hopefully get 4 set bonus as well. Last week I reached 647 item level, 2 set bonus, and a Raider IO score of 1434. So the first thing I did this week was delves for the map and crests. I got the heroic haste versatility ring from the map, which is a direct upgrade to the champion version I was wearing. Afterwards I jumped immediately into keys. As a warm-up I decided to do a Dark Flame Cleft +4, as that was a dungeon I still haven't timed yet. This is considered one of the easiest dungeons this season and has, I believe, the highest completion rate of all dungeons this season. But despite all this, I like this dungeon the least. It's just really annoying after the Candle King boss, especially with the whole escort the card through the darkness, and the darkness boss itself is one of the worst boss designs I've ever seen so far. This run was pretty chill though. We had no deaths the entire run and we double upgraded it, and I got no loot as per usual. Next I went into my first +6, which was a Theater of Pain. This dungeon for me is what I would call a comfort dungeon. That means I know this dungeon very well and I'm not really worried about anything in there from healing perspective. The last boss can get a bit hectic sometimes, but it's not too bad. Mordretha does a frontal that you need to avoid. I used my wings for when the first manifest death happened, as there's a lot of damage going on when that happens. At 50% phase 2 begins, which starts with an AoE damage. I tried to use Aura Mastery here to prevent incoming damage, but I was a second too late there. People died to personal mistakes here and there during this fight, but we still double upgraded this dungeon, and I got a Heroic Crit Mastery ring, which I didn't need. Next on the chopping block was Rookery +6. This tank knew what he was doing, so his pulls were decent. The hardest part in this dungeon in my opinion is the trash. The diffusers between the first and second boss cast Attracting Shadows, which pulls in everyone at the same time, Arcing Void, which puts a big circle on someone that we need to avoid. These combined will do a lot of damage, so I try to use wings or make sure mini wings are ready. Now that I mentioned mini wings, I want to quickly mention my Holy Paladin specific WeakAuras a bit. So mini wings is what I'm tracking with this icon here, which is the talent called Awakening. My holy power spenders generate a stack of this buff, and once it reaches 15 stacks, the next judgment within 30 seconds will pop wings for 12 seconds. This has both offensive and healing benefits, so I use this immediately as it's available, unless we're about to pull a new pack or a boss. Then of course I have the Holy Power bar, which have flashy animation when I have a Divine Purpose proc, which increases Holy Power costing ability to do more damage or healing for free. And the other animation is for when Blessings of Dawn procs, I believe, which increases my next holy spending abilities by 50%, and it can stack. The other Holy Paladin specific WeakAura I have in a lot. All you need to know about this is that in Mythic Plus dungeons, you want to cast these on yourself, apart from Blessing of Autumn, which I cast sometimes on the tank when they do a big pull or I see they are struggling a bit to stay alive, because it heals them, but if you cast it on yourself you do damage with healing. If you're interested in these, I link them in the description, but I'd also suggest checking out the Paladin Discord, as that's where I got them from. I've been really struggling with the last boss in Rookery a lot, when the tanks are tanking it in the middle. I kinda need that space in the middle to run around, so I can try to reach everyone to heal, because we have to spread to destroy the pillars with the Storm Rider's charge. And as I was trying to reach the mage to heal, I ran into the frontal because, well, it's in the middle. I was super flustered from dying there, so I moved to the side and honest to God, I did not realize I'll be clipped by that circle, so I died again. Thankfully, we managed to kill the boss without further deaths, but I was a bit annoyed. We +2 this dungeon again, but I also got nothing once again. Afterwards I went to Floodgate, but only on a +5 because I'm super scared of this dungeon still. There are so many things that can go wrong easily. The first boss isn't too bad, to be honest, especially as Holy Paladin you can make your own life easier if you make sure the ad casts are interrupted. Other than that, just dodge everything and pop cooldowns for the intermission, which happens when the ads die. Everything else during that fight is avoidable damage. Last week I talked about why the second boss is difficult, and it's because of bomb management. The tank tried to direct people with pings, but they fell on blind eyes, so one bomb did go off, but I was able to top us up without using cooldowns. Then later on, another bomb went off, and the DPS killed one boss faster than the other, and the tank flipped his lid a little bit, but I threw a sacrifice Divine Shield combo on him. When both abilities are available and I see the tank needs help, I throw out sacrifice while using Divine Shield, otherwise I would die to the damage the tank takes, but this way he gets an external from me, for free. The tank even complimented my healing after that boss, which made me all warm and fuzzy inside. On the last boss we came incredibly close to wipe because the tank couldn't get rid of his spark, and then I had the most healing intensive moment so far, so I'll just let this clip play out. It was super satisfying seeing those health bars go up to max from 10%, thus making a full recovery instead of wiping. It was truly an exhilarating feeling saving this fight. We +2 this dungeon as well, and I got a champion chest that was kind of useless. After this I logged off for the day, and a couple days later I started my day with a Priory +6. First pull of the dungeon was a really big pull, but these guys were real gamers and cranked out some insane DPS. Before we went upstairs, we skipped the patrol. Please, remember this moment for the next episode, what the Demon Hunter tank says here, about this pack being really deadly. It will come up, I promise you. After dealing with the first boss, another huge pull came in with our second last. There were 5 paladins with sacred tokas, but did I rise up to the challenge? Oh, see for yourself. We ended up 3-chesting this dungeon without a single death. Wow, that's really impressive. These guys were really good. Oh. When I saw everyone's scores, I felt like the biggest clown in the circus. I got absolutely boosted through this key, and I didn't even realize it until the end. I figured they are farming this dungeon for the one trinket everyone wants called the Signet of Priory. Oh well, it was fun either way. Next I went into my first +7, which was Motherlode. Despite the tough times last week and the week before, Motherlode is also a comfort dungeon for me. I know it very well, I'm quite comfortable with the mechanics and everything. This group was once again fantastic. We had a small mishap at the start where the tank went splat. Oh no, how did he go down so fast? I'm not sure what could I have done there for him. Turns out, nothing, because when I watched this back, I saw he was trying to run through the green shit on the floor, which is very deadly. We smashed this dungeon into pieces as well and double upgraded it too. Then I went into a workshop +7 where an "oops, I did it again" happened. Oh, not again, man. Oh, this is so frustrating. I'm literally standing with everyone else. For some reason, the tank couldn't res me, so we vibed. He was nice about it and tried to take the blame, but I said nah, it was my bad. We went again, killed the boss, and then proceeded to double upgrade this dungeon too. I was a bit annoyed at the end because we could have potentially triple upgraded this one if it wasn't for that vibe, thanks to me. One of the lowest dungeons I had left to do was Cinder Room Meadery. It was the tank's key and he had a really low IO score, so I was a bit suspicious of him, not gonna lie. He gave me a massive heart attack at the start of the dungeon for multiple reasons. Bear form? Hello? Oh, he's using a toy, I guess. Jesus, that scared the shit out of me. Sheesh, he died from full HP, what the fuck? We racked up 8 deaths in the space of 1.5 minutes. At this point I thought this dungeon would be a guaranteed disaster run, but it actually turned out the tank knew what he was doing because he started to kite and his cooldown usage was on point, but his item level was only 620, and that's why he was so incredibly squishy. And wouldn't you believe, despite that terrible start, we were still able to +2 this dungeon. This truly shows it's not over until you finish the key. I bet many would have left at the start after 8 deaths, but it turned out fine in the end. I needed exactly 57 score to hit Keystone Master, which had to come from Dark Flame Cleft. I signed up for a +7 and I pretty much needed to double upgrade it. And I got quite nervous about it when I saw the DK has a lot less damage than the tank. Blaziken is the scariest boss for me in this dungeon as it does a ton of damage. And Kindling Inferno puts up a dot based on how many candles did the boss himself light up. If you have 5 stacks, that means the boss lit up 5 candles. Then Dousing Breath is a hard-hitting AoE damage where the boss extinguishes all the candles, and this one really hurts. Thankfully, we managed to get through this boss without any problems, and through the whole dungeon really. Oh, we did it! I got Keystone Master, let's go! Woo! Despite the DK's low damage, we were still able to double upgrade this key, putting me exactly at 2000 rating. Thanks to the Keystone Master, I got an extra catalyst charge now, but I'm going to wait till next reset to use it. Before I was done, I upgraded my crafted shield to 675. So, I end this week with a score of 2000, and I only gained 2 item levels this reset, but next week should be a huge one, because I'll get my 4 set for sure. I'm hoping maybe I can time my first +10 next week, but we'll see. Hello! This week was an emotional roller coaster. Where do I even begin? A key got disbanded because of me. Almost bricked another key because my game froze for a few seconds. Had a steamy encounter with a Death Knight. And I attempted my first +10 as a Holy Paladin. Welcome back to episode 4. Last time I reached Keystone Master, which awarded me with an extra catalyst charge that will come in play this week. Let's start with the vault. The choices were actually quite poor. The crit haste vault was great, but I couldn't take it. Then the Entropic Guarding Core is I think one of the worst designed trinkets in the game. Let me show you quickly why. It gives you a lot of crit and has a chance to summon a fragment that gives you a lot of intellect. Sounds fine on paper, but in practice these fragments spawn in freaking Africa, so you not only need to move, you need to move a lot and could spawn in potentially dangerous places. So while it would have been an upgrade, I'll never take this. The other choice was a weapon, which is also useless because I have crafted. So really, the only choice here was the shoulders that I can catalyze. Afterwards, the first thing I did was picking up the weekly quest that awards us with a cache that was a heroic item from the raid. My highest hopes out of this cache are trinkets. The biggest would be Mr. Pick-Me-Up from Sprocketmonger or Mug's Moxie Jug from Mugsy. I quickly did 4 +2 keys as I could really use the rune crest, but I didn't record much of these as they were just quick and easy because I'm massively outgearing them. So, what do I get out of the weekly? A heroic helmet. Well, it's not a trinket, but it's my 4th piece for the 4 set, so I immediately went to catalyze it. Finally, this is out of the way, and it's time to really start the road to 3k now. As a warm-up, I decided to do a +8 Priory of the Flame, and let's just take a look at what happens here. Okay, so the tank pulls the casters on the side on purpose. You can see a heroic throw flying, but never gets aggro on them. Then he pulls the mini-boss, the patrolling links pack and the shooters all together. Remember what the high IO tank said last time I was here? That these packs are deadly and we skipped them. This guy pulled all of them together and more. The mini-boss chainmail does a lunging strike, which puts a bleed on the target and anyone nearby. Then we have the lynxes doing a pounce, which also puts a bleed on their target, and the shooters in general just really hurt. This pull is pure insanity. It's doable, but I found it incredibly hard to heal, and once my cooldowns ran out, we died, and essentially didn't even kill anything. And then the tank just does a question mark in chat. So we come back, and as you can see, the tank charges in way before I do anything, but I somehow managed to get aggro from one hit on chainmail, who minis me low. Then the 3 sharpshooters are all casting on me, so I die instantly. We wipe, and then the tank just goes with the typical heal question mark. On the last try, we only pulled the shooters with the mini-boss, but the patrol walked into us. I had aggro, I panicked, and ran into a trap which pretty much killed me. Then everyone started blaming me.
Okay, bye.
Healer, you had so much stuff ready to use, and tank get the fucking aggro.
Healer dies all the time.
I took the blame because I'm not gonna sit there and argue, because 99% of the time you won't be able to change people's mind about it. But it does annoy me that these guys walked away from this dungeon thinking I was the only problem. I was quite demoralized after this experience, but I tried to keep my chin up, so Rookery +7 was next. And the first pull really set the tone for the whole dungeon. Oh, poor druid got bonked because of aggro. No last? Oh, here we go. Aye, they stood in the front, oh man. And the hunter spot is stuck, so he's not doing any damage. Sheesh, what a disaster that turned into. Then the tank stood in another frontal. I managed to survive long enough to save this pull from resetting. Then after the first boss, he did a gigantic pull, which we couldn't survive once my cooldowns ran out. I did about 2.3 million healing, but it wasn't enough to keep us afloat. On the next pull, I didn't even notice this when I was in the key. The tank literally bubble-hearted out of the dungeon. I can see his bubble activated, and the poor demon hunter gets clapped, and the tank was out of range because he hearted out, and of course dropped the group. Him dying to 2 different frontals cost us most of the deaths, so not a very good look on him. By the way, I just want to quickly mention, please do not message or harass anyone you see in these clips. I'm only showing them for entertainment purposes, not to start a witch hunt on anyone, so please be kind and respectful. My confidence was in the gutter after this, but I went back to a different rookery where everything was fine until the last boss. But even the last boss was a lot more pleasant to heal this time because the tank was standing on the side, which made my job a lot easier. Unfortunately, the tank went down after a frontal. I assume he has to rotate his defensives here. I'm really not sure. I could have definitely topped him up faster though, but we had to wipe it fast. Next attempt we finished the boss and finally timed the dungeon today and got the crappy trinket I spoke about earlier. Next I went to a Theatre of Pain +7. My original plan was to do 10s this week, but these first few dungeons really put a damper on my mood and I lost all confidence. So I tried to do dungeons I haven't done on a 7 yet to, well, get back into the groove a bit, so to speak. I haven't mentioned the affix yet. This week was the dreaded healer affix, where Xalatath puts a big heal absorb on the whole party that can be dispelled or healed off by anyone. People, of course, most of the time do not care to help the healers out, so I've been just healing it off. It is a bit annoying, but there is no point getting frustrated about it. In this dungeon there were a couple deaths to individual mistakes, but nothing major, until the last boss where this happens. No, I'm DCing! Oh, no, fuck man. Luckily I had Soulstone, so we kind of recovered enough to finish the key, but the screen freeze made me become really frustrated and I logged off after the key because there is no point continuing when you are tilted. I know a lot of people, even in other games, just tilt queue and they bring the tilt into their next key or match or whatever with them, and it just usually makes things a lot worse. A couple days later, I continued the first key of the day, which was a floodgate plus 7. Yes, still only just a 7, as my confidence was still a bit shattered, and I thought if I can heal this floodgate, I can heal anything. This run was almost flawless. There was only one death at the start when the poor warrior fell to the RPGG circle, but other than that, every boss, even the bomb boss, got executed perfectly, which can mean only one thing. Yep, I got boosted again. To be fair, they are not that far ahead of me this time, but this dungeon felt good. It felt good enough to attempt my first +9, which was Workshop, where, while we were waiting for a tank, the group was quite chatty, which is unfortunately very rare to see these days. People usually don't say a single word during the key, which is okay, but you know, before the key starts, a little conversation about favorite expansions and such is nice. But then the DK got a bit steamy and cringe.
I would love to grab you by the horns.
I then said, yeah, then I have nice thick thighs, to which he replied,
You can break me between those.
Finally, when we did start the dungeon, unfortunately me and the warlock died due to missed detonation kicks, but hey, at least we didn't wipe. Then on the dog boss I was incredibly close to getting knocked out again, but not today, sir, not today. Midway through the dungeon, the DK asked,
Date in Goldshire when?
The tank pressed W key steadily throughout the dungeon, so I didn't have time to give a funny reply, but I wanted to say something similarly cringe, like, I don't think your sword is big enough, or something. I'm bad at human interactions, okay? I had a really cool healing moment where I had 2.3 million HPS. That felt great. Before the last boss, we actually managed to skip this time because this warlock knew how to place a gate. Amazing! We finished off the last boss with no problem, thus timing my first ever +9. At this point, my confidence returned, so I thought it's time for my first +10, which was a Theater of Pain. As I mentioned before, I consider this as one of the easier dungeons, although it does last quite long. We had no issues up until the trash before Xav. The tank wanted to skip, but we somehow failed, and we kind of ran out of space with the spinning swords, and he got clipped by one and went down. Luckily, The other Paladin had aggro who bubbled, while I picked up the tank and was able to save the situation. We were on good course, but then on Gorchop, the mage must have thought of himself as a hooker because he got boned not once, but twice. The second time I sadly pressed sack instead of bop onto him, so that was on me as well. I rest him a second time, but unfortunately the tank got chained as well. So that was it for the timer, sadly, because we wiped on the boss. We all agreed to finish the key though, so at least the Mythrax slot for the next reset is guaranteed. Overall, the dungeon didn't feel too challenging to heal. As per usual, the players made it harder than the dungeon itself. The last dungeon for the week takes us back where we started. Priory +8. This dungeon is not going well either, but this time I felt like it was 100% my fault. I had the bleed on me and had Bubble, Bop or Lay on Hands ready, but do I use them? No, of course not, God forbid. We go again, but this time the tank is taking an absolute beating, and even after casting Lay on Hands on him, I couldn't keep him alive. I forgot to mention that these guys were a guild group. After this fight, they started to walk out of the dungeon, but they didn't say a single word to me throughout. We walked outside and I stopped recording because, well, I thought they would kick me, but they didn't. They just restarted the dungeon a 7, with me included, but again, they didn't say a single word. I started typing out, "Do you want me to leave?" But then the keys started. I do keys with my guild on my other characters all the time, and when we pug a spot, we always keep them on the loop, even with just a single word, you know, like, you don't need to write an essay to the pug, just tell them something. I was so confused. So, we were doing the +7, and these guys also decided to do the mini-boss with the lynxes and the sharpshooters, and I started to feel dead inside, not gonna lie. At this point, my Bob was already on cooldown, and of course the other two paladins don't use theirs, so the poor hunter dies to the bleeds. We made it with only 2 deaths until the last boss, where the stupid screen freeze happened again, but thankfully it wasn't deadly this time, but it could have been. There was a scary moment towards the end where the warlock died, and while I was getting him up, everyone dropped super low, but I was able to top up everyone and finish the key, and that was it for that week. Unfortunately, I can't show you what was in my vault because, I recorded a black screen apparently. But I picked the Mythtrack belt as that was the highest item in my vault, as expected. I upgraded some stuff so the item level is at 655, and I got myself an alchemist stone trinket crafted. Our score only increased by 168, but let's hope next week we can time some 10s finally. Dear Diary, this week has been quite eventful. I finally started timing some +10s and had some moments I was proud of, where I saved someone or the whole party. But I had some downs as well, of course, such as this theater of pain that lived up to its name and made the biggest mistake possible as a paladin, which led to almost a full group wipe. And we finally open our fattest vault yet with 3 mythic track items. Welcome back to episode 5. Last week went quite poorly, gaining only 168 score and an untimed +10, but I got a mythic belt out of it at least. This week had a time walking cash reward, and although it's only champion, I still really want the potential Mr. Pick Me Up trinket from this cache. But of course, I don't get it. After this, I did a delve, which finally got me a champion wrist that I upgraded straight away, as that was my lowest item still. And then I went into a +9 mother load as a warm-up. I don't know about you guys, but I like to do slightly easier key for the first time of the week, just to get my bearings about my class and what the affixes and so on. Despite not having a bloodlust in our group, this dungeon went absolutely flawlessly until I got the unluckiest power cut in history. This dungeon was going super smoothly. We had 0 deaths and the electricity in my entire building went out for a few minutes. When I looked back, the group was still there, but the Havoc Demon Hunter was offline as well, so the tank called it. I felt terrible about it, but there were issues for an hour or two in my whole area, so I had to take a break until the problems were solved. When I could play again, I tried another Motherlode +9, where I saw a rare creature called Arcane Mage. I'm actually low-key interested in learning that spec maybe after I finish the Paladin series, but we'll see. We finished this key with little to no problems, so it was now time for only 10s. I said only 10s, not only fans. Welcome aboard the Misery Flight. This is your captain, Saloon speaking. Please fasten your seatbelts and prepare for some loss of sanity. You also might be experiencing some loss of brain cells upon watching this footage. Have a pleasant flight. Yeah, so this key was probably the worst 10 I've done this week. I don't know why these first keys are always so super cursed. The Evoker died on the first boss to the frontal, but that's whatever, happens I guess, right? Then he died after the first mini-boss as well because he got to bleed, and both archers were targeting him, and I had both Bop and Neon Hands on cooldown, so he rests in pieces. But you know, this is pretty normal stuff, nothing too bad, right? After Xev, we start having the dumbest deaths ever. This poor mage, God bless him, had a really bad time, like just standing in the very obvious green circle. Then we skip the patrolling gas bag without him, and while he tries to catch up to us, he walks into it and dies again. Then 3 of us died to Withering Discharge going off, although I'm not sure how because I was targeting it and my kick went on cooldown, so that was odd. Then as we're running back, the silly Evoker ran too close to the patrolling gas bag, so we went down again. After we get back, the mage dies again to the frontal, although in his defense, it does clip into the floor there quite heavily, but yeah. Gorchop takes the Evoker as a victim, and Kultharok's balls get the mage not once, but twice, and the Evoker started to have enough of the mage's poor performance. I do struggle with these orbs though as well sometimes, not gonna lie. I wish they had a circle outline as well. The timer was long gone by this point, but people stayed to finish, and before the last boss, this happened. Oh, that was great. On the last boss, towards the last 20%, we had someone on the floor, and then 2 more followed, and then I died as well. On the next try, 2 people died to the frontal, so we reset. But on the 3rd try, we are finally done with this god-forsaken place. My brain was fried to a crisp after this key. I did not stop there though. The next destination was Workshop 10. After the first boss, the tank wanted to skip a pack, but someone ran into it, and then he started typing instead of tanking, so I get healing aggro and pay the price.
Oh no! Anyway.
I had a very embarrassing death on the spider bot. On the last boss, the mage forgot to lust, and everyone's yelling at him, but it never comes. But it's fine. We still timed the key, so 1 down. 7 more to go. Afterwards, I went to Dark Flame Cleft plus 10, but I want to yap a bit about some Holy Paladin stuff. So, about 2 weeks ago, we got a lot of buffs, and around that time, a new Holy Paladin build emerged. The idea is to talent into Relentless Inquisitor, which gives us more haste, and change Beacon of Virtue, which a lot of people dislike, for Double Beacon. I tried out this build in some lower keys. The idea is to put a beacon in a squishy range like Hunter or Shadow Priest, etc., and the other on the tank during trash and swap it to 2nd DPS for bosses. However, it's been announced yesterday that we are receiving even more Holy Paladin buffs, and it looks like the build will change again after the 15th of April, so I'm kind of glad I waited with playing with this new build. I'm just going to wait and see what the theory crafters come up with and roll with that. Not running Virtue does sound a bit scary to me on paper, if I'm honest. I do agree that having to spend a global on it does feel quite awkward though. So for this and the next video I'll be playing the originally recommended build, but afterwards you'll see me on the new one. If you want to know about Holy Paladins in more depth, I'd highly suggest checking out Elsmere here on YouTube or his website wingsysup.com, as he's an excellent resource for learning more about the spec. You'll find a link to both in the description. We smashed this key and the warrior looted the plate gloves, which were an upgrade to me, and he was kind enough to trade it. That's 2 out of 8 portals. After this I did a +9 Cinderbrew Meadery, because I only timed this on a 6 and thought, well, people are not likely to invite me for a 10. This dungeon went absolutely fine. We had plenty of time, but the DPS decided to throw on the B-boss by not doing the mechanic. As you can see, I'm doing the barrels when there is nothing going on, but I can't do all of them. Eventually, we got massively overwhelmed and vibe. Needless to say that this cost us enough time that we couldn't finish the dungeon in time, so this was an absolute waste of an effort. I was really pissed off, so I logged off for the day after this. A couple days later, I'm back in Motherlode +10, and by a pure coincidence, I have the same tank I had a few days ago in the Motherlode 9, but furthermore, we almost have the same group composition as well, with the Shadow Priest and the Shaman. Only the Arcane Mage is missing. I often show a lot of suffering throughout these episodes, mainly because I think those are the best teaching moments. It's always best to learn from mistakes, whether it's yours or someone else's. That being said, there are also a lot of small moments that just makes me happy. Like how on the first boss I scored a pretty game-saving goal on the boss nobody else could have done otherwise. Or when our tank Albert kind of struggled on the mini-boss, and I had to commit lay on hands on him and Blessing of Protection after the trash was over, otherwise he would have died to the 5 stacks of bleed. Or look at this incredible teamwork on the Alchemist pack. Everyone rotating through their stops. We literally use everything. Shockwave, Stun Totem, Thunderstorm, Blinding Light, Fear, Blinding Sleet, another Fear, Interrupts. It's beautiful, silent teamwork. One does go through at the end, but it didn't matter. And it's just little things like this is what makes Mythic Plus fun for me. Do you know what else is beautiful? The subscribe button. Supposedly if I say subscribe, the button starts sparkling on YouTube, but I'm not sure, I've never actually seen it. But maybe you do now. The end of the dungeon became quite messy unfortunately, but I got sandwiched between two fixates, but I didn't realize at the time, so I die. Before the last two machines, the priest fell to a bomb, and then the tank death gripped the bomb onto himself, so we all fell, which was kind of funny, not gonna lie. Anyway, despite all the hiccups, we still managed to time this dungeon, thus earning my third portal. Next on the chopping block was Rookery. I'll show you in 3 clips what happens. I was quite proud of the save I tried to do at the end by combat resing the tank and bopping the demon hunter, but since he supposedly disconnected, it was all futile. It is what it is. GG's, go next. I went back with a different group and we timed it. Then Theater of Pain as well straight after, so that's 5 out of 8 turns done timed. Okay. Priory. It went better than I expected, but we struggled in places where I didn't expect us to struggle. We did not lose the first pull, which I was quite surprised by, but it turns out we won't lost at all till much later for some bizarre reason. I've learned an interesting tack on the first mini-boss Suleiman. Paladins, listen up. When Suleiman casts Thunderclap, you can completely negate the damage with Blessing of Freedom. I'm not running the double freedom talent, so I put it on the priest because he's the squishiest. The tank's pulls were really good in the courtyard. He knew exactly what he was doing. He made sure we are killing chainmail on its own and skipped the shooters and the lynxes. It went very well until the end. We had only 3 deaths to small mistakes. I somehow missed the kick on a fireball and nobody kicked the other, so I go down, slowly followed by the rest of the group. Then we go back and the tank tried to grab the patrol, but Braun Pie got pulled as well, who is already hard to heal with just the 2 priests, but with the light spawn, I found it really difficult. I literally ran out of things to press as the light spawn is targeting me, so I go down, but I get picked up. We continued and we didn't vibe, but we had quite a lot of deaths to this already. Thankfully, we were able to kill the last boss in time, so Priory is done as well. Now only 2 dungeons remain. Cinderbrew was next, and man, I must really say I'm really happy about the change on Brewmaster Ardria. The knockback was so unnecessary, I'm glad they got rid of that. On the P boss, we had unfortunately 1 ad touch the boss, but it wasn't too bad. We were still able to recover and were on a good course. On the B boss, the biggest bullshit of this entire series happened. I had a bleed ticking on me hard, and you can see I lay on hands myself. It even goes on cooldown. I can literally see the animation, but I die anyway. Hey, Post-Edit Saloon here. As I was editing this footage, I noticed that the lay on hands went onto one of the Unholy DK's minions. I'm still calling BS on that though. I was pretty mad after this, not gonna lie, Especially then seeing that nobody is doing the battles again. Like how hard is it? I've spent an insane amount of effort to keep the group alive through this. I was literally sweating IRL. The sweat continued as I find the last boss very, very healing intensive. I sweat buckets every time I'm healing this boss. There is just a lot going on damage-wise, and I'm kind of panicking trying to keep people above the grass. Luckily, I was able to. Nobody died. Oh, and look at that overall interrupts list. If you're able to kick as a healer, you'll make your own life a ton easier, trust me. The very last 10 I need to time. It's Floodgate, of course. As per usual, I'm shooting bricks before the key even begins. I was really worried about this one, but it starts out very well. Trash dies fast. First boss goes down easily. But then I make the biggest, dumbest mistake you can do as a paladin. Fuck, I booped the tank and everyone's dying. People will think I'm griefing. On the demolition duo, the warlock stunned himself into a circle and perished. We picked him up and killed the bosses. After Bubbles, I love how 3 of us are standing in the inspector's frontal, like the boomkin and the tank are literally blocking my character, but only I die. Classic. On the last boss, I feel like there is something a lot of people don't realize. When you get the spark fixate, you can run across an unelectrified puddle. Obviously, don't take a bath in them or don't stand in them, but you can just quickly run through them without getting hurt. At least in my experience. Anyway, we smashed this boss, and at the end, I apologize to everyone once again about the bop incident, but everyone's cool about it, and we parted ways. So, I'm officially 8 out of 8, plus stands timed. One thing remains now. The Vault. Well, I was really hoping for Trinket, to be honest, from Dark Flame Craft or Priory, but all of these options were an upgrade, of course, and I chose the plate boots because they were crit haste, which is really good for us. Plus, I had still champion boots, so this was going to be the biggest upgrade for now. I also upgraded my sword to 675. After upgrading some extra stuff, I'm at 660 item level, and I'm at 2590 score with all dungeons timed on a 10. I have never ventured beyond this point before, so I'm excited to see how I'll fare in higher keys. Although I'm only 410 score away from reaching my goal, I'm expecting the progression to slow down a lot, but we'll see. I sat here for around 30 minutes trying to come up with some kind of clever way of starting this episode, but my mind is very distracted, and I'll explain in a bit why. But for now, let's talk about what I've been up to. I started to venture beyond 10s this week and did my first plus 11 keys. Some went very well, and others not so much. I even attempted my first ever plus 12. And not a week can go by without something stupid happening to me in a key.
3, 2, 1.
What? But it went past me! Oh, come on, Blizzard, what is this shit?
Oh, Lord. Again. Again. Nothing new, nothing changed, same old shit.
Welcome back to episode 6. If you're new to the series, thank you for tuning in. you'll find a playlist for the previous episodes at the end of the video or in the description. Last week I timed all 10s and reached 660 item level. So this week is quite exciting, as I have never gone beyond plus 10s before. So naturally for me this came with a lot of anxiety. So far I've only felt it a little bit before keys I find scary like Floodgate or Priory, but I'm in uncharted territory. While I was working up some courage, I did some plus 6 Dark Flame crafts for rune crests and had to farm trinkets. I was looking for either the carved Blaziken Wax trinket, which procs versatility, or the Burin of the Candle King that gives an absorb shield to someone on use. I got the Burin, as you can see it on my bar, and upgraded my gear to 663. As you may have guessed already, the first dungeon was Rookery plus 11. And you know the rule by now, that the first keys of the week are always cursed. This one is no exception. In the room of the first boss, we didn't finish off this little bastard burp before moving on to the next flashback, and it flies into the middle.
And you know what time it is? Disco time!
And of course it pulls the first boss. I could have healed through this possibly if I used cooldowns, but with 2 people already dead, there was no point, so we wiped quickly. The tank took the blame, but as I was watching back this footage, I am 100% certain that it was the unfinished Stormbrook flying into the middle. The series of unfortunate events did not stop there. On the first boss, the affix spawned in at the worst possible time, in a really awful spot as well, which confused the shaman and the druid I think, so they both died. The shaman had Ankh and we picked the druid up again, so thankfully we finished off the boss. Afterwards downstairs, as the tank pulls big, I get again one of those dumb screen freezes. So the tank dies. Luckily he spawned right next to us, but the shaman fell as well. This was unfortunately 100% on me. I saw he had defensive running, so he just needed some heals, which I couldn't provide because of the annoying screen freeze. At this point I kind of lost hope of timing this key, but actually we made a huge comeback, defeating the second boss with no issues. And the third one as well, with 3.5 minutes left. It just really goes to show that it's not always over when it looks bad. I bet many people would have left after this rocky start, but I'm glad everyone stayed. So that's our first plus 11 timed. The next dungeon was Motherlode 11, and it took us 25 minutes to find a tank for this dungeon, which felt like an eternity for me. At the beginning, the tank had a skip included in this route, which I wasn't quite prepared for. I knew it existed by pure coincidence, seeing it in a video the night before, but basically you jump over the fence, skipping a peacekeeper, and then skipping more stuff on the side. These jumping puzzles and ledges in WoW are my mortal enemies. I suck at these so badly, it boils my blood every time people want to skip the stuff this way, but since then I figured out how to do this easily and prefer to do it that way actually. So I'm gonna show you in case you see people wanting to do this in your dungeon and you struggle. The idea is to jump on these boxes, then instead of jumping forward you kind of want to jump to the side a little bit where you will land on an invisible ledge. And that's it. Ever since I learned this, honestly this is my preferred route through this dungeon. Spoiler alert, this key is gonna go well. So I want to use this time to elaborate a bit more on why my mind is distracted that I mentioned at the beginning. So unfortunately, my guild's raid team has disbanded and I took it a bit hard. if you are hoping for some juicy drama, put your popcorns away, cause I have to disappoint you. But basically, a raid/guild leader has a lot of good things going well for him IRL, so he's a lot busier and can't commit to be a guild and a raid leader anymore. We had nobody who could fill his shoes, so that's it. I'm really happy for him, don't get me wrong, but I'm also disappointed. We were a heroic raiding guild and had to stop before killing Gallivix even. I can't express enough how gutted I am about this. I've been here for almost 2 years and it just ticked all the boxes, you know. My goals aligned perfectly well with the guild, I was happy here, I got to know some awesome people, had fun raid nights and banter, and it's just over now. So now I'll have to look for a new guild if I want to raid, and I hate joining a new guild. It's such a hassle to find one that suits your needs, and then I'm a massive introvert as well, so it takes me months to get comfortable with everyone, and of course my main is a BM hunter. Yes, I'm a filthy BM enjoyer, and who needs those? There are like 3 in every guild, and my logs are not stellar either, so I'm not even sure if I want to bother looking for season 2 at this point, to be honest. As a result, I've been feeling a bit down. However, I've been really enjoying making videos for you guys, whether it's transmog videos or the Holy Paladin series, and afterwards 0 to hero on another class and spec. This is what keeps me going in WoW at the moment. Anyway, this mother load went well. At the end, the tank asked us about the route. At the time I told him it's risky in pugs, but I changed my mind since then. It was perfect. Next was Workshop 11. Can you guess who dies first? Yes, it's yours truly, as I'm trying to go for an interrupt and I didn't look under me, so I die to a circle on the floor. Embarrassing, to say the least. Then the demon hunter dives into the tank mechanic. On the dog boss, the tank peaked too early, so he took a tick of flame wand, and because he was LOSing me, I couldn't lay on hands on him.
3, 2, 1.
The third boss, in the last 30%, kinda goes to shit. Oof, yikes. We have a warlock in our group, and you know what that means. Warlock gate shenanigans. That of course must go wrong. The shaman couldn't use the gate, and this has happened to me as well on another character. Like, no matter how much I clicked like a lunatic on it, it just wouldn't transfer me. But as a result he dies, and we had to foreman the trash and summon him. On the last boss the tank died somehow, and then so does our timer. Eventually I died as well, but it was kind of over already anyway. I could have played this key better for sure. The next destination is Theater of Pain, which I absolutely grew to loathe. In this run, we have a brewmaster, a rare species that nowadays you'll only see in national parks. A monk means a skip at the start, which will end up in an absolute disaster. So he does the classic paralyze and monk ring combo, so we can skip those 3 ads, but somehow we get into combat with it. The mage warns us, but I don't see anything running to us yet. We spend a good portion of the fight absolutely fine, and then see the first 3 mobs sprinting at us halfway through, and then the FX spawning in as well. It just became a colossal clusterfuck. I had no clue what was going on. I combat as the hunter in hopes of being able to recover, but I couldn't keep the group alive. The tank goes down, So we wipe.
Winter.
On the second attempt, the Warlock dies to the frontal, and because we have no combat chest available, we had to foreman the rest of this boss, which cost us precious time. But the dream of timing this wasn't over, until this happens.
Three, two, one.
What?
Five.
But it went past me! Oh, come on, Blizzard, what is this shit? I was incredibly tilted because this made the key impossible to time now. It annoyed me so greatly that my death contributed so heavily to the failure of this dungeon. And even so, we missed the timer only by 40 seconds. Anyway, I ran it back of course, and midway through the key I suggested a skip that I've seen in several videos people make, but I'm not the tank, and I didn't really think about the consequences of the skip, so we killed the last boss, and of course we are missing percentage, and I started to feel physically sick IRL. I started shaking and everything that we won't time this key because I suggested a skip that we weren't prepared for. So we go down, and I had no clue where we're going, how are we doing this, the timer is ticking down fast, so we take these crappy portals to the middle that feel like take decades to get through, but we managed to time the dungeon, and I was so relieved, Jesus Christ. I'll never make route suggestions ever again, that's for sure. After this, I logged off, and a few days later, I crafted myself a necklace, because I still had a champion neck, so I thought I might as well. First dungeon of the day was Cinderbrew 11. I'm not sure why, but I really struggled healing this tank, and I can see he is using defensives and everything, but I guess it's just a tough pack, I'm honestly not sure. These pools were eating up my mana like crazy, because I fell into a bit of a panic mode, which meant I'm not standing in melee and start casting holy lights to keep the tank topped up at all times, because I know if he dies, it's a full wipe. I usually never run out of mana, I don't even really drop low unless something isn't right. But yeah, standing in rage like this and casting holy light is a big no-no. I only do it for if for whatever reason I can't stand in melee. Then, before the boss, I had a chance to sit down and drink, but I didn't, which was a bad decision on my part. Luckily, I had mana potions, which I had to use for now for the first time ever, and Blessing of Winter was coming up, which was another extra source of mana. I actually didn't had the chance to drink mana at all until the third boss.
Mommy milkers, big mommy milkers, big huge milkers, and huge big milkies.
On the last boss, I really loved the teamwork again during the intermission, where I pressed Aura Mastery, the warrior uses Shout, and everyone has defensives running, so we barely get tickled by the boss. And these are honestly the best moments for me. And then, something happened I never expected, and didn't happen during this series before. The DPS warrior and the hunter were together, and they invited me back for a theater plus 12. Some of you might frown on me, but I took this opportunity because I thought, well, why not? I don't know these guys, we are not friends or anything, we are still pugs to each other at the end of the day. So I returned to Theater of Pain for a third time this week, and I forgot to press record for the first part of the dungeon. I'm sorry. We vibed on the first boss because some of us, and I mean me of course, stacked accidentally on the warrior and killed each other with searing death mechanic, which is really bad on a 12. Because in case you didn't know, after 12s, there is no more weekly affix. We got Xalatas Gaio instead, which was Challenger's Peril in Season 1, where 15 seconds will be taken away from the timer with each death. We are on the last boss. We pull it with less than 4 minutes left. Plenty of time for the boss, especially with Lust halfway through, right? Ha! Wrong! Dumbass forgot to press Aura Mastery, and the Paladin and the Warrior gets one shot as a result. I was so upset with myself, I felt like I threw away my success at the first plus 12. Then I got killed by the frontal that's facing away from me, and I was kind of done there mentally. We finally killed the last boss and I just wanted to get out of there ASAP. I even logged off for the day. The next day I had only time for one dungeon, which was another workshop. We had a couple deaths at the start, and I almost inspected the floor as well if it wasn't for Divine Shield. Otherwise, nothing else interesting happened during this key, and it went really well. The next day was Wednesday, which means Vault Day here in the EU, and I didn't really get anything exciting. Had the Crit Mastering ring from Top, which isn't great for me, Crit Mastery gloves, and Crit Mastery legs. I took the legs and catalyzed it, and upgraded everything I could to reach 665 item level. Now, normally this is the part where I show my character's gear and score progress, but I'm a scuffed YouTuber and I forgot to record it, and I can't do it now because I progressed further since then. So here are my amazing painting skills. I timed 5 plus 11 dungeons, depleted 2, and a plus 12. So the total score is 2665. Next week I'll try to finish off the remaining 11s and start hopefully timing 12s as well. Okay, we have a lot to talk about, so let's get started.
I've no time for games.
Okay, that was weird. Anyway, this week was hard as I finally got into 12s and had quite a few disbands.
I see your struggle. Allow me to offer perspective.
How about no? As I was saying, 12s are definitely more challenging, which gave me quite a bit of anxiety, but...
I see this makes you uneasy.
Can you just shut up, Sylvanas? Go back to the maw hole you crawled out of. I'm just gonna start the episode. Welcome back to episode 7. Sorry for the scuffed picture about where we left off last week. If you remember, I forgot to record it. But I had 665 item level and timed 5 out of 8 11s. Okay, keys now. 2 weeks ago I talked about some Paladin buffs and I said I would be playing a new build. I don't want to get into too many details, but I'll be playing double beacon instead of virtue, and we have a lot more passive heals than before, and powerful holy shocks. Thanks to the buff to the veneration talent, Hammer of Wrath becomes a quite powerful ability, especially combined with other talent points, as it heals allies now for a fair amount every time you use it. Another talent debuff is called a Just Reward, where if I dispel something of someone, I heal them, which is awesome. So with this in mind, the first key of the week was Priory 11. The first pull in this dungeon is quite intense to heal, and there were moments where we dropped really low, but we managed to recover. My first keys of the week are usually cursed, but not this one. We had literally 0 deaths throughout the whole dungeon. In a priory, one I'd consider quite difficult in certain points. The tank route was great, he knew exactly what he was doing, the DPS did their job and used defensives well, although despite that the timer was a bit tight and we had only 2 minutes left, but who cares? Timed is timed. After the dungeon, Retrick the tank messaged me saying he's seen my videos, and once again, man, you tanked very well, honestly. Just wait till you see next week's prot Paladin in this dungeon, and you'll feel a lot better about yourself, trust me. The next 11 I still needed to complete was a floodgate. As I'm still kind of getting used to this new Paladin build, I found that I really struggle on this pack next to the gliders. I did not have any cooldowns ready, so I'm in super panic mode, and I managed to keep people alive just about. But then, I completely wasted another wings because I had nothing else to press, and it just came off cooldown, but we were kind of finished with that pack, so rip. Then on the boss, I kind of made a mistake when the Paladin had the explosive circle, and I didn't use anything on him. I had sacrifice, bubble, my trinket, but I just let him die, and then I get stunned. But I got him back up and we proceeded with the boss. We had no further accidents until the last section of the dungeon, where I perished to an unkicked cast. But that was it though, we timed this dungeon quite comfortably. The last 11 I needed to do was Dark Flame Cleft. This run was super chaotic. We had 10 deaths already before the first boss to just uncontrolled mobs. Before the third boss, we did a skip that I've never seen before, and it involved some bullshit wall jumping again, but thankfully I got through it without taking up too much time. After the third boss, something really dumb happened, and I'll just let this speak for itself. Yeah, I don't know, man. I was really confused about what the plan there was, and I blamed the shaman for some reason. It was weird. Despite having 16 deaths in total, we almost still two-chested this key, and I even got a compliment.
Nice.
And that's all 11's timed, but we are not stopping there, of course. Unfortunately, I'm an idiot, and I didn't press record for the first ever timed +12, which is a shame. I only managed to get a screenshot as proof that I did it. Motherlode 12 was next though, and don't worry, I did record this, but I'm kinda feeling bad for showing this to you. This poor feral druid had a really bad time in this key. He died not once, not twice.
Another one. Another one. Another one. Another one. Another one. And another one.
Despite all that, we timed this dungeon quite comfortably, so that's 2 12s timed already. After this dungeon, I had what I'd call a big brain moment. In case you haven't noticed, I'm a Draenei, and we have a crappy ratio called Gift of the Naru. I realized I've not been using this at all. It wasn't even on my bar, and I used it to see how much it heals, and I noticed something important. it's off the global cooldown, which means I could combine this with something that has 2-minute cooldown as well, and that is Blessing of Sacrifice. So I made a macro and boom, it works. This way, my blessing not only reduces damage taken, but it also heals. I felt like a genius.
Sometimes my genius is... it's almost frightening.
But I bet this is written down in some guides already or whatever, but I don't care. I'm glad I was able to discover this for myself. I only wish it wasn't so late. But hey, it's better now than never, eh? The last key of the day was Rookery plus 12. It was quite late, but I wanted to sneak in one more successful key, but this was not it. The tank jumps into a pack, goes down, and several other people die as a result. My beacon reminder WeakAuras annoys the heck out of me, then the patrol gets pulled, I kiss the floor, and then the tank just straight up alt F4'd, so that was the key done. I also alt F4'd for the day after this. Few days later, I went back to the grind, and it was terrible. We failed a plus 12 Theatre of Pain due to a lot of stupid deaths, followed by a Rookery plus 12, but I mean, how do you die on the first back in a 12 here? Come on. This was sadly a clear indicator that this dungeon won't be timed. I was absolutely scared to step into Dark Flame Cleft, after Blizzard hotfixed the mechanic on the third boss, which made it a bit harder. I think people didn't melt the wax very well, so I fell behind on healing, and the keyholder left the group. At this point, I just really wanted to time at least one godforsaken dungeon that day, so I signed up for another Rookery 12. This is the third try this reset alone to get this dungeon done in time. At the start we had unfortunately 4 deaths to the caster pack due to nobody having kicks or stops available, which was quite unfortunate. Then on the boss, I'm not sure how, but the hunter decided to inspect the floor for a while. But thankfully, those were the only deaths. We timed this key quite comfortably, so that's 3 12s timed so far, finally. Mentally, I was quite drained after that day, so I logged off. I started the next day with a Dark Flame Cleft plus 12. After last time, I was quite worried about the third boss especially. And let me just show you how it went. This was so much easier to heal than previously, now that people have been actually doing the mechanics and boss positioning correctly. The difference was huge. We almost 2-chested this key, it went that well, so I was really happy to have a 4th dungeon timed on a 12. I wanted to do one last key for the week, and that was Cinderbrew Meadery. Once again we have a warrior tank, and I found him really difficult to keep alive here. But I think partially the issue is the demon hunter's damage is abysmally low compared to everyone else's, so the trash lived a lot longer than it should have. I had to commit all my cooldowns for this one pull alone as a result. I know nothing about Havoc demon hunters, but this damage does not feel normal to me with Lost and everything. After Chewy, we did another big pull where the evoker got one-shot somehow, and I had a massive trouble keeping the tank alive, and I failed, so we essentially wiped. There was one muscle left to kill, but the tank decides to pull the boss with the muscle alive, which was a massive issue for me because it got a volatile keg off at the same time as Throw Cinderbrew came out. I had to use everything to keep us alive there, but for the next Throw Cinderbrew, I had literally no cooldowns, no defensives, nothing left to press to help the situation, so me and the Evoker died.
Holy look at all this damage!
Needless to say, people gave up after this. That was just simply infuriating. I'm a bit sad that I had to end the week on such a bad note, but only thing left to do is to open the vault and it's all trash.
You should be grateful.
Yeah, I should be grateful for a week's worth of suffering. I only get a singular socket. Wow, amazing! Anyway, overall I'm happy with this week's progress. This has been probably the most difficult part of this journey so far, which makes sense. I'm only 172 score away from achieving my goal, but it's only getting harder from this point, but hopefully it won't take long now before I achieve 3k IO. I did it, guys. I finally hit Keystone Legend, aka 3000 Raider IO score for the first time ever in my WoW career with pub groups only, as a spec I never played before previously. First, I'm going to show you the dungeons leading up to reaching Keystone Legend, then I will talk about how did playing Holy Paladin feel overall. Was it hard or easy? Would I recommend it or not? And about what will I play next, based on what you guys chose for me on the poll. If this is your first time watching, you can find a playlist for the whole series in the description or at the end of the video. Last time I ended up on 2828 score, timing 4 out of 8 plus 12 dungeons and finished up all the 11s. I started the week with one last try for the Mr. Pick-Me-Up trinket from the Time Walking cache, but of course had no luck. Then, for the first time ever during this series, I did my own key, which was a Floodgate 12. There was nothing to lose for me here. If the key fails, then I will still be able to get into another Floodgate quite easily, so I thought, why not make my own first? I thought my group composition was actually quite nice. We had versatility buff from the tanks Mark of the Wild, we had Bloodlust, and 2 other combat reses apart from myself, and a Shroud if we needed it. I must say this run was pretty solid. I have to give a special mention to the Rat Paladin here, as he was using his Lion Hands pretty much on cooldown, which was a big help sometimes, which is not something I often see. We had literally 0 deaths on a 12, if you can believe it, right up until the last boss, where this happened.
1.
Luckily, the boss was casting, so nobody else died while I picked him up. Then, the poor paladin walked into an electrified puddle. Unlucky. Despite those 2 deaths, we still managed to defeat the last boss in time, so overall, I was really happy with this group. I did a Theatre of Pain plus 12 next, where we had a few mistakes along the way, but we pulled the last boss with 6 minutes left. Plenty of time, right? Well, let's just say I really struggled on this last boss. But we still timed it. This will come back to haunt me later though, you'll see soon why. I had only 2 12s left to time. The next destination is a Cinderbrew Meadery. The group started out in a really good mood. We got a feast, people were positive.
Are you sure about that?
Saying it will be easy and stuff. The first pull went quite well, and honestly I'm kinda glad I wasn't healing a prot warrior here for once, no offense to them, but this demon hunter felt a lot easier to heal. I mean, just look at their self-heal. It's absolutely nuts, which took a lot of pressure off me. Also the DPS was quite high here overall, so this pack disappeared quickly. We defeated the first boss easily, and the second one as well. On the B boss, I saw the warrior dealing with the battles and I tried to help out when I could, but people actually doing one important mechanic on this boss makes a huge difference in healing. Needless to say, we destroyed this boss easily. We still had 9 minutes left at this point, which is a lot of time for the last room. The last boss is always very stressful to heal. There is always constant damage going out whenever the barrels explode, and you have to dodge the fire as well. Towards the end we lost the warrior, but I picked him up and carried on, finishing the boss, thus timing Cinderbrew 12 quite comfortably. Priory was the last plus 12 I needed to time. Our team composition, while it was kinda off meta, it looked fantastic because the monk tank provides Mystic Touch, which increases physical damage dealt, the hunter provides Bloodlust, and the warrior provides Battle Shout, which increases attack power, and we have a rogue who's going to be dealing mostly physical damage as well. This was a match made in heaven. The first pull went well, I didn't even need to use wings. Then my heart sank a little bit when we pulled the sharpshooters and the lynxes, but I had wings ready, so I wasn't worried about it too much. I just didn't expect it, to be honest. Unfortunately, a bit later, I bit the dust because there were 3 fireballs aimed at me and neither the rogue nor the warrior decided to kick. But I could have also used blinding light, but no, and the rogue fell too because I wasn't there to heal him. On the last boss, the warrior didn't turn away from the blinding light and I didn't react fast enough to dispel him, so he died. Luckily, we had still all combat reses ready, so I picked him up, then the rogue got blinded as well, but I was able to dispel him fast at least. We finally finished the boss and almost double upgrade the key even. But more importantly, my keystones are now resilient. In case you don't know what that means, in this patch Blizzard introduced a new system to prevent your keys from depleting once you timed all dungeons on a plus 12. So now my plus 12 key can't deplete further even if we run out of time. You have to repeat this for all further key levels, so in order to achieve plus 13 resilient, you will have to time all of them, and so on. This won't really make a difference for me, to be honest with you, as I'm not really going any further than 13s. So, after timing all 12s, I'm on 2955 IO. According to the Mythic Plus Panel website, I needed only 3 dungeons to reach my goal of 3000 IO, and I had to complete pretty much all of them with at least 2 minutes left. Motherload 13. Still the easiest dungeon this season in my opinion, at least from a healer's perspective. To my biggest surprise, we did not skip the Peacekeeper at the start, which I didn't expect. We had a very press the W key kind of route. We didn't really seem to skip much of this, which is fine. We are just past the second boss, and this is where we'll get the first death from the Demon Hunter because of aggro, which I almost died to and had to bop myself as well, but the fact that the tank got polymorphed was a lot more scary, but luckily I dispelled him fast enough for him to get the aggro back. After the third boss, the poor Demon Hunter walked into his own bomb. On the last boss, we were all gathering on the safe spot. In case you don't know, on the last boss, that point where we are stacking is a safe spot. The rockets will never hit that spot, but it's kind of hard to see and you will have to stand in the boss's hitbox a little bit. It's quite dangerous in my opinion, but our team played it perfectly. The droid even shadow melded his missile whenever he could. Nobody died during this boss. We were not quite done yet, as we were missing a tiny bit of percentage, so we destroyed a mine, which I didn't know gave a percentage until now. At the end, the demon hunter and the druid gave me compliments for my heals, and I know this will sound super cringe, but it almost made me cry because I didn't expect it, and I'm terrible at receiving compliments, but it meant a lot to me, so it was very heartwarming. So that's 1 out of the 3 dungeons down, way ahead of the required time. 2 more to go. Theater of Pain was one of the 3 dungeons that I needed to time on a 13, and it's precisely because of how badly we did it on the 12. Despite having a monk in our group, we decided to not skip the first pack because the tank wanted to skip both mini-bosses. After the first boss, I mentioned I'm not sure if we can do that by just running, but we definitely can do the second one. But lo and behold, we actually managed to skip the first mini-boss by just running past. Unfortunately, we fumbled on the second one. But hey, skipping one is better than none, I'd say. I had a really good feeling about this group. The damage felt quite high compared to what I'm used to, so I had a good feeling about this run. This feeling went away real fast when the monk got bonked by a frontal on Xav, followed by the shaman shortly after. These pair inspected the floor once again by standing in green circles on the first rush in the Gorchop wing. Deaths in 13s are extremely punishing. You lose 15 seconds from the timer with each death, so it's a bit frustrating, but mistakes happen. Thankfully, as I said, the group's overall damage felt quite high, so it wasn't too big of an issue for now. I think the pressure really got to this shaman. He was probably quite flustered and almost missed Lust, and unfortunately got wrecked on Gorchop as well. But he took accountability for it after, and to me personally, that's all what matters, you know. Sure, it costs of precious time, but as long as you don't blame others than yourself for your mistakes, nobody will care too much. On the other hand, I want to highly compliment this prop warrior. Hands down, the best one I met during the series. He barely ever took damage, I never had to worry about him. He can tank my Cinderbrew meadery anytime.
That's what she said.
Gosh, that sounded, Yeah, let's just move on, shall we? We got through Kultharok with no issues, and we had a bit more than 5.5 minutes left for the last boss. This was the smoothest Mordretha fight I ever done on a high key. We had no deaths on this boss at all. My cooldowns worked out perfectly. People used defensives, commanding shout and everything. It went so well. If you watched the video this far, then you're the GOAT. As a proof, write me down in a comment, what is your favorite snack? Mine are cheese twists. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. At this point, I am 1 single dungeon away from hitting Keystone Legend. And you might be wondering, wow, Saloon, you had such an amazing runs this week. You've been timing every dungeon first try. Ha! You fools! That's what I wanted you to think, but you've been bamboozled. I had many, and I say many, failures leading up to this point that I decided to make a little montage out of them. So, hope you enjoy.
I don't think so. No, 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 no. I don't think so. No, 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 no. It's It's never, ever, 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 ever gonna happen. I don't think so. No, 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 no. I don't think so. No, 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 no. It's never, ever, 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 ever gonna happen. I don't think so. No, 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 no. I don't think so. No, 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 no. It's never, ever, 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 ever gonna happen. I don't think so. No, 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 no. Maybe someday you'll have it your way. Maybe someday it'll all work out. Until then, nope, a nope, a nope, a nope, definitely nope, a nope, nope, a nope. Probably never, ever, 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 ever gonna happen. Oh no.
The worst part of these fails was honestly the queue times. When I had to start doing 13s, I felt like hitting a massive brick wall. I was sitting there sometimes for more than an hour trying to get an invite as a healer. People were literally taking anything over me apart from Preservation Evoker. Sadly, the majority of players care a lot about meta on 13s, even though they are still doable with any spec. Anyway, enough teasing. Here is Mechagon Workshop, the last dungeon I needed to reach 3000 IO. This was the smoothest run I ever had in this dungeon, hands down. We took the first room slow and steady. We lost at the first boss. From a healing perspective, I find these drills and the healing absorbing slimes quite scary to heal, but I managed to keep us alive through it. The third boss can be quite tricky sometimes, as the longer it stays alive, the more hectic this fight gets. I was locked in super hard on this boss though, and nobody died. For me, the most stressful part is this double spider pull. This is definitely a healing check, and I had to dish out 3.2 million healing on these bad boys, but we made it. We are reaching the last boss with 0 deaths, which is incredibly good. We had a ton of time. The first phase of this boss isn't too bad, to be honest. The beams hurt, but apart from that, as long as you dodge balls, it's all good. The second phase, however, is quite stressful. I used to have terrible positioning on this boss because I was scared to be in melee, but for this last dungeon, I did it properly, and it was a lot easier than I thought. We did have quite a couple of victims though, but thankfully, none of them were me. The warrior died not once, but twice. And the rogue fell off at the end as well. But we finished off the last boss with plenty of time to spare, and I finally hit Keystone Legend. I did it! Let's fucking go! Haha! So, now the conclusion. Would I recommend Holy Paladin for Mythic Plus? Absolutely. Holy Paladin is one of the few remaining reactive healers in the game. The damage happens and you heal it. Simple. The only spell you need to think ahead with really is Aura Mastery, as you want the damage reduction up before it happens. I would especially very highly recommend Holy Paladins for anyone who plays melee classes mostly, as you are pretty much only using instant casts to heal. You heard that right. This is, I think, one of the main things that makes this healer unique is the fact that you are mostly working with instant spells such as Holy Shock, Eternal Flame, or Word of Glory for single target heals, and Holy Prism and Divine Toe for AoE healing. I only cast Holy Light or Flash of Light when I can't be in melee for whatever reason. Because of this, you are almost never running out of mana either. You also don't need a million add-ons either, and the only mandatory WeakAura in my opinion is the Awakening tracker to make sure you are not wasting your mini-wings. There are, of course, cons as well. Despite the spec receiving buffs twice in the past 2 months, it's still considered bottom of the barrel. I personally think the main reason for this is not output, but simply the fact that any Paladin spec brings the same utility you bring to the group. And Red Paladin is the most popular spec in the game, so despite being a healer, you are fighting for the same spot. Most people don't want more than one Paladin in their groups. This does not matter if you're only doing up to +10s, I feel like. That's important to mention. For 10s you can take any class or spec or even group composition and it will be fine. If you are pushing for Keystone Legend or above, however, it will be more and more difficult to get invited for sure. Overall, I would rate it at a medium difficulty spec. It's not easy, but it's not as hard as you might think. The way it plays currently feels smooth, and it's not hard to learn or get used to at all. Well, that's it guys. The Holy Paladin journey has officially ended. But what's next, you might wonder? In the last video I announced a poll for a 0 to Keystone hero, where up until that point Outlaw Rogue was winning, but since then that changed. So everyone, meet Chisu, the vampire-looking Arcane Mage. So expect next Sunday the first episode of some Arcane Mage goodness. I thank you all very much for watching. The support I received throughout this series was incredible, and I hope you will all stick around for more, as I really enjoy making them. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that sub button and make sure to like as well. I'll catch you all next time. Bye bye!